Welcome to Circle Podcast, brought to you by Circle Sanctuary, one of the oldest nature spirituality churches in the United States, connecting people of nature-centered paths around the world. Join us throughout the week for a variety of shows discussing various topics, celebrating the divine in all of its forms through nature worship, rituals, education, and building bridges of community. Welcome to Urban Unwitches, a podcast to educate, inform, and expand the pagan community. Please join our Discord channel, Urban Unwitches Podcast. Follow us on TikTok at Urban Unwitches, and listen to all our past podcasts on your favorite podcasting platform. You can also join us on YouTube at Urban Unwitches. Now, back to the show. Hey.
Well, hello, dear. Hi.
How are you, Rev Tyler? Kyler?
Girl, what? What did you just do? Dear.
I was reading him, her, your majesty, oncoming storm when I was trying to say your name. And it came out that way. Like I just couldn't absorb all that information at one time and say your name properly.
Well, last time on our first attempt at a Divination podcast, and we will give more context in a moment, you said that I should put Rev in front of my name. And so I did, but I'd had a lot of coffee by that point because and rage. There was a lot rage and coffee. This last podcast, we'll call it an attempt because, we did put forth an old college try. By the end of it, I was pretty sure Geneva was going to call me and say that came close to the line. We were very angry. I can't say that I'm less angry now, but I'm preemptively caffeinated. Yeah. So I go through and I'm putting on my my Rev thing, and then I'm like, as I do, it was like, she's got her pronouns. I should probably put my pronouns. No, they're not on your thing, but they're like in your email and all that. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to be progressive today. I'm going to go ahead and I'm anything other than he, him, ha, 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 gay man. But I put it a he, him, your, and then the first draft of that, Dia, was much larger than what you're seeing on the screen right now. It's like, let's see, I was Defender of the Faith, Pax Regina, Khaleesi of the Great Grass Sea. It went on. And then I'm like, even for you, this is a bit much. Can you live up to this hype? And I'm like, immediately imposter syndrome hit. I was intimidated by my own self-aggrandizing claims. And I'm like, no, Your Majesty, because I am a queen. And 2, oncoming storm, because thank you, David Tennant. You did the Lord's work.
My goodness.
Tone is set.
So, and we're both tired today.
Although
you have more reason to be tired than I do, I think. I'm only tired because I didn't sleep at LARP. That's why I'm tired.
I am so tired. I'm in that melodramatic place where I need me a fainting couch. I feel like I should be wearing a corset. Right. Oh, woe is me. Legitimately, I don't remember entering into a consensual BDSM relationship with this last week, but something's trying to dom me hard, and it can stop. Like bad touch. It's not good. My husband, my saintly, wonderful, incredible, muscular, attractive husband, decided to come to a corporate team builder that my company put on. And so we rented out a section of a bowling alley. Ridiculously expensive. Who charges that for a bowling alley? It's bowling. I don't know. But anyway, great event. We had a wonderful time. One of our friends, our very good friends, actually the reason I applied for this job and got it, this friend, he's a league bowler, and he wanted to show my husband this amazing trick where you can put a spin on it. Okay. I don't bowl. I throw things down the alley and hopefully it hits the other side. That apparently is Chris's approach too, because I saw the form that my husband used while walking up, and you're supposed to have the stride, and then you've got the momentum and you swing with the arm and all that. So Chris does this weird Peggy Bundy hop bunny skip thing so that he has no momentum when he gets right there and it's time to just launch the ball. But what he does have is big shiny muscles, and he used them to hurl a ball while trying to put a spin on it, with all of the force of childhood trauma and bad decisions. Like all of those muscles were involved. The problem was it was coming from a dead stop. And when he tried to put the spin on it, there's this muscle in the human bicep. So the big bicep, that's not actually like your biceps. That's what's on top that makes the big gun. That doesn't really do a whole lot. Its primary job is to actually turn your hand. And when you're putting a spin on it, that's the muscle you use. Isn't that fun? It's yeah. It's called kinesiology, the study of how people do dumb things. Really, it's the study of how the body moves in 3D space. But it's same thing, same thing. Synonyms, folks. Synonyms. So he snapped the tendon, the whole ass tendon, off his forearm. Okay. Now here's the thing, because you would think that would be enough, but it's not. Because in all things, my honey baby, he is an overachiever. So what did he do? After he snapped a tendon off his forearm, causing pain so bad he almost blacked out, he almost sank to a knee, and his social anxiety about passing out in public is the only thing that kept him on his feet and awake. Proceeded to bowl for the next 2.5 hours.
Oh my goodness. No.
By the time Hooker was done, his tendon was up near his shoulder.
Oh
It
my.
had retreated all the way back up there. And like that kind of happens anyway, because those muscles are under tension. But no, it had traveled. It was like Frodo with the ring. Like it was all like
All
so
up into the
surgeries.
armpit of Mordor.
Right. That property value was low. Surgeries on Tuesday.
Oh
God's help me,
gosh.
surgeries on Tuesday. So I'm dealing with that while at work. I training, teaching, huge important thing for me. I don't compromise with that. Don't mince anything with that. Like when you take on the role of training someone, you do everything you can to make it the best. That is your primary focus. That's you are responsible at that point. Someone is trusting you to give them information in a way that they can engage with. I take that very seriously. Um, Not every trainer out there does. Just gonna toss that out there. Because some folks not great teachers. You want to look for the signs. We talk about the signs. But the people I'm training, person/people I'm training, they are full time. So I have been back to full time. So even though I'm technically part time, I've gotten to experience none of the joy of part time, which makes Kyler sad.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Because
it's
you're not
it's
doing
it's
all
so
the
fun.
things you had planned to do.
Right. Like I had like 3 days where I got to be part time, and I got like chapters into my book, and I'm trying to keep it alive, but there's not a lot of brain left over after. So, but all of that's fun. Your turn, because I can't talk about my drama anymore. I'm gonna cry into my coffee.
Well, I have permission to do something that people have been asking for, and that is to name my LARP. My
Oh,
LARP's name is called the Echolands. You can reach it
mm,
at echoeslarp.com. And I have been given permission to name it, so, and to tell you guys about it. So I was at LARP this weekend, and sometimes it happens that the adrenaline doesn't wear off when you go to bed. And so you end up laying in bed for hours, staring at the bunk above you, wishing you could sleep, and nothing happens. And that's what happened Friday night. I did not go to sleep till probably 5 o'clock in the morning. And then I woke up at 7 because the monsters come by 9. So you got to be out of the of the barracks by 9 or the monsters will kill you. And this is so true that when the monsters come back from the barracks, we send out a raiding party to go rescue anybody who was left in the barracks who might be dead. So that happened. And then Saturday I slept after a very full, we had 2 big boss battles, which is unusual. It's very unusual. These are battles where we have lots of opponents fighting against us, and they have really high stats, so it's harder to kill them. And we had 2 of those happen. And then Yeah.
I have a context question for you for this.
Sure.
So like in D&D, you can sometimes get like strategic little long rests in there, which is like an 8 hour rest or 4 hours if you're an elf. But is the only long rest you can have when you're LARPing like at night when you go to sleep? Is it like that kind of campaign or?
Well, so what happens is there's always a tavern, and the tavern is where everybody gathers and hangs out. And I usually take crochet, and there are dead times. There are times when nothing's happening, deliberately built into the day, so that you
Mhm.
have a chance to rest, so that you're not constantly. The monsters on the other side couldn't fight you all the time anyway. They're human too.
Mhm.
So there are raiding parties of monsters that will come through every once in a while, and you have to fight them. You have to put down what you're doing and fight them. And then
Mhm.
those raiding parties inform who you're going to fight at the end of the day. Right. So if it's a certain type of monster from a certain world, because in the Echo Lands, you have a bunch of different worlds who get sucked into the Echo Lands. So we're all in the Echo Lands together, and that means we brought all of our bad guys too. So the bad guys that you meet during the day tend to inform which world the bad guys are coming from. And
Okay.
so that happens, and that was happening, but we were getting raiding parties of two different worlds, and we were like, what is going on? Like, what is this? Turns out that one character's their story arc was coming to a close, and that led to a battle. And then another character's story arc was also coming to a close, and so that led to a different battle. So we ended up in two different big battles, and those battles can be an hour long.
Mhm.
So you kill the monsters skulk off, they regenerate and come back at you again. And
Yeah.
so you have a few minutes usually. It's at least a minute because that's how long it takes me to armor repair. And I can usually do 2 or 3 armor repairs before the next wave. So 2 to 3 minutes between waves of monsters. And that also gives some healers a chance to heal people and get them back up for the fight,
Mhm.
that kind of thing. So yeah, we had 2 of those, and they were both a slog. Both were just, you know, a big slog. They really were. And then there was an arc of a storyline that led us to a temple that luckily I really thought we were going to have to battle at that temple too, but they did us a mercy, and there were traps, but there weren't any bad guys waiting on us. So we had to disarm traps, but that was all we had to do. And we had to put together a puzzle, and it opened a secret door, and then we had an encounter with a benevolent being who told us all this information that one of our players had been trying to find out. So that arc was completed too. And so, but that had to do with my people and my world. So a lot of the information had
Mhm.
to do with my world. And I finally immersed enough. The news we got was bad news. My people, if you kill us, we can regenerate spontaneously. So if we physically die, we have to go tell the people who run the game that we died, and then we just go off into the woods, and because we're plants, and we regenerate, right? And it takes a certain amount of time, and then we're back in the game. We have learned that they can kill us in this world, which was not what we understood. So not only did we learn we're never going home ever, 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 we also learned that we're going to die eventually. We will die, whether it's in battle or some other way. That has not been clarified, but definitely we can die. And so consequently, all the Lushies were upset. One of my Lushie friends got really mad and started killing things just randomly because he was pissed. So, but I cried in character. I was so proud of myself. I cried and was so convincing that the next morning, one of the main characters came over and went, "Is Dia okay?" I was like, "Yeah, I'm fine. Why?" It's acting. I was acting.
I want to take a moment to go back to something we have talked about on this show many times, and that is woo theory. Describing D&D or LARPing is very much like describing any spiritual or metaphysical experience you will ever have. You always sound like you have a screw loose, probably several, like one of those IKEA things that never quite is like in a square. It's more like a weird parallelogram. That is why you have to listen to woo theory, because it's very much the same, and there's levels of woo, and LARP is a level 10. Like if you are a
Yes.
LARPer, well, okay, no, LARP is like a level 8 or 9 because there's still brony conventions.
Oh.
Not to call out bronies. I have some friends who are bronies. I don't understand the fan group. I don't, but I'm there for it. You do you. Could you imagine if I finally do get canceled and it's because of bronies? That would be amazing. That's almost how I'd want to go out, right? Like, what destroyed your online, celebrity, such as it may be? Oh, brownies. They came for me. It was a massacre. So yes.
So what I just described is high woo. You have to, one of the things I say about LARP, and I just recently came up with this, is in D&D, you say to your dungeon master, I want to go over there to that guy with a sword and I want to fight him. And then you roll a D20 and you see who wins.
Mm-hmm.
In LARP, you have a
civilized.
Sword. You have a sword. The other guy has a sword, and you think, I want to go fight that guy over there with a sword. And so you walk over and you fight that guy with a sword, and whoever is the better swordsman win. So it is either you end up injured and being carted off to the healers, or you beat the bad guy. It's one or the other. Right.
My brain just made me Obi-Wan, when he's talking to Luke with the lightsaber. It's an elegant weapon for a more civilized age. I know that is a bad Ben Kenobi. Don't judge me, internet. Okay, I've never done an impression of him before. That's not true. Nobody believes that. It's just a bad impression. But I feel like that just happened in my head. It's like, oh my God, but there could be mosquitoes. I'm just gonna roll my D20.
Oh, this time there were large roaches.
No.
Yes, there were giant roaches that we were being attacked by, and giant scorpions. So we had to break there because of real life happening. Kyler got a phone call, so he had to take it. So we're back, and we're talking about divination today. I think I've talked about LARP enough.
Also, can we please just not refer to phone calls like that as real life? I still sometimes have difficulty adjusting to the fact that I get phone calls like that about selling cars. I mean, I'm okay with being a car salesperson, but not really. My therapist and I were working on it. It's a journey.
It's a journey.
So, it's a journey.
So the reason we're doing divination again is because we did divination a few days after the death of Alex Peretti, right? That's the name.
Alex Peretti, and then it was about a week out from Renee Good.
Renee Good.
Good.
So
yeah.
Good.
Good. Yeah.
So we were pretty emotional, pretty upset, and then therefore it just everything we said came off as just angry, and I listened back and laughed through it because it was so bad. So we're trying divination again, and we pulled this divination, unfortunately, for an author. We decided to do it for an author, but they have disappeared, and so I don't think we're going to be able to have them on because they refuse to respond to me now. So their loss, not ours, because we can still talk about divination 2 days, but because Kyler and I both are experts at different types of divination, so we haven't written a book on it.
Oh, you use the E word. That's the pedestal. When you fall off, you hurt your ankles.
Yeah, but we know enough about certain divination to talk a good game for an hour. I mean, that's true.
I mean, us talking a good game, that we don't even have to have a topic, do you?
True.
This is us. It took us 3.5 hours to get through LARP and broken arms to get to the topic of today.
God. Well, one of the things that we didn't talk about last time that you really wanted to bring up was the idea
Yes.
that divination, its key word is divine, like
Yep.
divination.
Right.
And then that means that the information is coming from outside of yourself, which is interesting because not everybody believes this.
Correct. So when I've been trained in divination in two different ways. So one is that you are conditioning and honing your own internal psychic awareness. And that's fine. The idea that humans without some kind of spiritual external agency can affect great change is actually a fairly new thing. It comes from the concept of the magia naturalis, which we really didn't see in writing or in practice until like the like late 18th, early 19th century. You've got novels like Aradia, The Gospel of Witches, and all of that. The idea that you have these magical powers inside of you. Harry Potter's a really great example.
Right.
The magic comes from within Harry, and then he uses the wand and the words to make specific things happen as a focus. That's how the vast majority of practitioners today kind of view everything. Your soul is the originating spark of all that. But in the old days, there's not really any evidence that that was the case. And I say the old days is like the vast majority of everything. And there very well may have been, but they didn't have the language that we would understand today to understand it. So if you needed an answer from beyond yourself, you asked the gods. And so like this, I mean, you had your fortune tellers, you had your old grandmothers, your wise women, your wise men, all that fun stuff. Even during Christianity, you had your pellers, your cunning folk, all of that. But big divination, like the art of divination, that was usually like reserved for temple priesthood. And so, like the tradition that I'm a part of, they approach it from the direction of temple priesthood. And so, like if you're ever going to do a major working, especially if you're going to call upon a deity to help you, so that's theomancy, by the way. So if you're ever doing something like that, if that's part of your practice, divination isn't just you fortune telling, prognosticating, using your skill. You're literally asking for an answer from on high. Like your gods that you work with are the source, hopefully, of the origination of that information. And we, in our rage fueled fest last time, we completely glossed over that, which is kind of a big thing. It's where it gets its name, divining. So
Right. And you're talking about things like the Oracle of Delphi, for example, which,
to an extent, yeah, that's a big example, but they like all of the tools that we use, temple priesthood use as well, or
right.
used.
And just before anybody says we didn't mention it, the Oracle of Delphi has now been solved, quote unquote. They sat over a gaseous chamber that caused hallucinations, and then they interpreted those hallucinations, and that was. And there have been a couple of diviners who have tried a created chamber like this before and found that it worked really well. But it's also very deadly. So,
Yeah,
they don't recommend. Like it's not recommended. Is
Yeah,
the
it's
thing.
not. This has not been backed by the Medical Association of America.
No. One of the things that I wanted to say is that I was raised in a divine interpretation of the receipt of psychic ability. My grandmother taught me that the book Bible says there will be seers among you, and so she believed that women especially were given the gift. Since then, I have altered that a perspective because I've had a son who also has the gift, and had the gift at a very young age. Like made me not want to take him around spiritual people because he kept walking up and spouting off truth bombs to them because he touched them. It was really kind of crazy.
I mean, kids are already bad enough about that anyway. Like if you have a secret, don't let your child know. They will tell the neighborhood. The whole cul-de-sac will know.
Right. So it was one of those things. So, but my grandmother taught me very much that the divine is speaking to me and that is the information. And what that taught me at a very young age was the idea of ego over over the divine prophecy, so to speak. And so I learned early on to try to delineate between what is divine divinely inspired, and what is my wishful thinking, what is my ego wanting in this situation. And that is one of the key aspects, in my opinion, to divination. You need to learn to die to ego and have your
Mm-hmm.
ego not be part of the equation so that you get more accurate information given to other people. And I have fortunately had a lot of time to work on that. I'm not perfect at it. Nobody is.
Mm-hmm.
You always are affected some by what you know, what you've learned, even from the subtle way people interact with you and the way that they dress and walk, and all of those things for a good psychic are part of
Mm-hmm.
the equation,
Right.
in my opinion. Uh, I think that's why, especially, I've found people who've had traumatic experiences where they've had to live in a space where their psychic ability protected them
Mm-hmm.
have a super elevated ability in the psychic realm. Is because of that.
Mm-hmm.
They've learned all kinds of things that they couldn't quantify, but are clearly having an impact on what they know about the world around them.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to point that out. I know that not everybody agrees with that. I'll never forget going to my first class where they said, so anybody can be a psychic. And I went, wait, what? Anybody can be? That's not what I was taught. What are you talking about? I was taught that it was, that you were chosen to be a psychic. And
Mm-hmm.
so it's taken some learning. What I have learned is you can teach energetics to anybody, and energetics
Mm-hmm.
can lead to psychic information. That's what I've
Yes.
learned.
I really like the way you said that. Yes.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
but I don't believe that I do believe there are people who are born to the gift, and that is having seen a child be born in the gift, right? And
Mm-hmm.
watching my son do things that other children did not do. Like, it was clear early on there was something
Mm-hmm.
spiritually different about him. And he still has that gift. We still talk about it to this day and have entire conversations around the difficulties of knowledge that, one of the things
Mm-hmm.
you have to learn when you have the gift is, do you actually give the information you've got? Is that appropriate? And you have to have a high level of empathy and attunement into the person you're talking to know whether or not they can handle what it is you're giving. I'll never forget, I walked
Mm-hmm.
in on a psychic reading where the girl was just, the person being read to was just a mess. She's crying and boo-hooing and I mean, lamenting is the only word I could
Mm-hmm.
give. And I walked in the room and I would stop. Like, I don't know what the hell's going on here, but no reading should create this.
Right.
And if it creates this, then it needs to stop. And so I stepped in, grounded the girl out, made the reading stop. And the woman who was doing the reading came up to me later and she goes, well, I was about to get to the good stuff. And I was like, no. Mm-mm.
The good stuff.
Good stuff. I was like, no.
Mm.
I was like, if this is what you
Mm.
think a good reading is, you and I have a problem, because this is not good reading. Good reading.
Trauma. Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
No.
Yeah. No, I mean, sometimes you're going to, if you are gifted and you are in tune, sometimes there are tears. Sometimes, because people may be getting information, especially if they're finally coming to peace with something.
Right.
Like, a really good reading is, I'm not saying it's therapy. Don't come for me, internet. I'm not saying a reading is therapy. But people ask questions that they feel really strongly about. And depending, doesn't matter how you're approaching getting the information. Sometimes that information is the catalyst they need for healing, and healing can be painful. But somebody should not be almost hysterical. Like, at that point, the train has gone off the tracks. And you had said some really good things that I want to respond to, because if I don't, my ADHD is going to make me forget that they were a thing. They're already starting to drift away into the ether. So one, I think it just happened. Oh, it's really good
Oh
too. Oh God.
no. Oh
I remember.
no.
Okay, so I was able to grab it by the tail feathers and just pull it right on back. Okay. So you were talking about how people's psychic gift can protect them. So I had this conversation with my own sister, who incidentally, very gifted young woman. Terrified her so much she shut everything down. Now she's a stump.
Yep.
It's a pain. It's almost like the reverse born again conversation with people who were very open and then it scared them and they shut everything down. And now just they're like the worst kind of skeptics, even though there's still a glimmer in there and they don't know how they know what they know. So we were having this conversation about how empaths, people with empathetic gifts, they
Right.
were raised in traumatic situations, and so they study the world around them because it's a trauma response. It's a way of keeping yourself safe. Two things can be true at the same time.
Right.
Magic is born of necessity.
Right.
The spiritual world is born of necessity the same way that the physical world is. Okay? You
Mm-hmm.
go to work, you move heavy things because you work in construction. Your muscles get big. That is
Right.
cause and effect. The same thing. Yes, you may study the world around you because you at some point have received trauma, but you're studying the world around you. That's what being psychic is. It's just being open to the information that's there. And if you feel like your safety, like on a reflexive level, you need all the information you can get, the channels in your brain that can be receptive to that are there. And then there are people who are naturally going to have a greater inclination, a
Right.
greater amount of just like
Affinity.
natural quote unquote talent, affinity. Yeah, that's a good word. The word talent for me is I've got a very
Yeah. No, I
interesting
would say
relationship
affinity.
with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And I this is something this is the second bit. I'm an artist. I'm an artist of not inconsiderable skill. I don't think I'm a great artist because anybody who thinks they're a great artist, that's an ego trip. Most artists think that they're pretty terrible, and wonder why anybody like we love the stuff that we make, but it's all that's why artists always need validation because we need you to tell us that what we did is good. Um, I have drawn most of my life. I've painted most of my life. I've been creative most of my life. I am a talented quote unquote artist, but 95% of what I do is skill. I gave up having a social life, and we'll pretend it was by choice, when I was in middle school and high school and all of that. I developed a skill set. It wasn't just gifted to me on high by the gods. I had to develop that. And if you look at my art, it didn't start amazing and stay amazing. It started crap and became, I'm not going to say amazing because my insecurities, but it's technically it is very very good now, and that's because I developed that skill. So for folks out there who think maybe they've got a very sensitive friend, maybe they know a psychic, it's like I could never do that, I could never be that. No, you could be yourself, and you could be
Right.
way more open and way more attuned and be able to listen. Does that mean you walk around with a tin paper hat saying that I'm the master psychic? No.
No.
Nobody should really be doing that. That's great
No.
for TV. It's yeah. So anyway, that was my
Right.
two things before I forgot.
Well, and I would say about the 10 paper hat is that I I was taught that if you were a really good seer, because my grandmother preferred the term seer to psychic,
Hmm.
but if you were a really good seer, you didn't have to tell anybody that your reputation would precede you, and
Hmm.
you word of mouth would alone would affect that interjection. And I don't read as much as I used to, but when I read, I would have random people show up and go, so and so told me that you were the real deal, and so now I need to come hear you
Hmm.
give a reading. So
Yeah.
and and when I say real deal, I mean not a mentalist, which is another type
Hmm.
of a person who takes cues from the world around them to give information to someone. And that's they're really charlatans. They're not really using uh, a psychic ability. It just seems like it's psychic, but it's not.
Hmm.
And so that's, to me, a lot of the really good psychics I meet are really just mentalism, because you can feel the energy. If you're energetically sensitive, then when you meet someone who's
Hmm.
dealing in the energy and someone who's not.
Right.
It doesn't mean that the information they have to give is any less valid. It just means that it's
Mm-hmm.
coming in a different way. It's not being
Right.
divinely inspired. It is being inspired through another means. So
Mm-hmm.
I just wanted to point that out, that
No,
when I
that's
say
a
the
really
real
great
deal,
call
I
out.
mean
Yeah.
not a mentalist, not someone
Yeah.
who's doing it in a different way.
So I will fully admit to our listeners and to you, for the longest time I thought that was me. Like
You are a
I
mentalist,
Yeah, well, I mean, like I pick up on, so I've done massage, I've done qigong, I've done like all I've practiced these things since I was like 15. I have
right?
been endlessly fascinated with them. I didn't realize that I was picking up on the energy the way that I was. I was reading people the way that I do. It took me years of developing my massage practice and my energy practice and all of that before I got to a point where I realized, wait a minute, I'm not just picking up on cues. Like I picked up on it so well that I didn't realize that some of what I was getting, like I was getting messages. And so I never thought of myself as psychic.
Hmm.
You and I've had this conversation where I have repeatedly said, I'm not sensitive. I'm more projective than I am receptive and all of that. That's because even though I can have a conversation with someone and I can know, we've talked about gnosis, that
Right.
knowing,
Mm-hmm.
I can have a conversation with them and I suddenly know things that I should not know. It took me, I'm not going to lie, a really disturbingly long time for me to pull my head out of my butt and realize, no, I was responding to things that nobody else should be able to know
Right.
because I was in that moment with them, but it was coming through with all of those other cues because it was such a natural, organic process for me.
Right.
I had to take a step back. And you were actually one of the ones who helped me to finally catalyze that and get out of my own way. And then once I did that, it was much easier to differentiate between the two. Yeah.
Right. And I think there are, especially children often do this and they
Mm-hmm.
don't know they're doing it, and they need somebody who's older and a little wiser to say, "Hey,
Mm-hmm.
did you know you're doing this?" Cuz and I have found children are so blunt that they'll like come up and ruin a person and then walk off like nothing has
Mm-hmm.
happened, right?
Yeah,
And
that's
so
junior
you
high. Like,
right. So you need to step in if you see that happening in someone younger. And I actually had this very conversation this weekend with
mm-hmm.
one of my younger LARP sisters about this very thing, and about the ability. And she was saying, how do I know? How do I know? How do I know when that's
Mm-hmm.
happening? And so we had a long discussion about how to suss that out and begin to understand those
Mm-hmm.
different ways of being. So we have talked then generally about
Mm-hmm.
divination, and we've hit on gnosis. And just a reminder of what gnosis is. Gnosis is the knowing of some information that you have gotten through a divine method, right? So, and a great thing of gnosis is to talk about the Ogham, which is the Celtic runes. These are a set of runes that were given, that were found, and there's only like 2 or 3 recorded places where they were found, and because of that, a lot of their meaning has kind of been lost, because druidry was an oral tradition, and so with it was lost the meaning of these Celtic
Mm-hmm.
runes, or the Ogham. And so a lot of practitioners have spent a lot of time meditating on these runes and then trying to learn what they mean. And they've done this through a combination of archaeology, going back and reading the original manuscripts, learning
Mm-hmm.
Old Irish and that kind of thing, and then through meditation. And then when they find, as a group, they agree on something, then they start reproducing kind of those spiritual meanings about the Ogham. So I think that's a really good one to start, because it talks about personal gnosis. I can personally have an affinity to a rune called Sail, and it could have a personal meaning for me. But then if that personal meaning gets verified without any context of space and time, so there's no contact between the two people who have these
Mm-hmm.
epiphanies, then, and it's the same epiphany, then you begin to have what's called group gnosis. So that means that everybody is seeing the same thing in the feed. Is what they call them, sale. And so that's kind of more of what it is. So a group gnosis. And then group gnosis then becomes kind of scripture in a way. People begin to repeat that and put my energy into it. And so then it becomes more real and more real and more real and more real. So that's that's group gnosis. So now we've talked about personal gnosis, which is your own personal view of something. Group gnosis, which is verified personal gnosis, is the best way to say that. And yeah.
Well, you had mentioned one last time that I really liked, because I hadn't thought about it in years. It's been 25 years. Right before 9/11.
Yes.
That was, everybody was pulling the tower card. Now, most of the time, divination is not quite that on the money, but the tower card made sense because it shook a foundation. Like those of us who are old enough to remember what this country and the world was like before 9/11, the world changed. Like it was this huge nexus point, and there were so many people who were saying, well, we can't really divine past this, like first year of the 2000s is the end of days. There was a whole lot of stuff. I remember Y2K, computers are going to shut down, banking and financial systems are going to crash, all that. But then in 2001, in September of 2001, there was this Nexus event that affected so many lives that it was hard to see past it. Something I remember reading, do not ask me where, because I've dumped so many words and books into this brain of mine that my index is shot, right before World War II.
Yep.
Something similar happened. It was impossible to see because there were so many possibilities, but it was this huge just snarl of possibilities that it was just hard to see past. And you get that sometimes.
Well, I think 9/11 is so interesting because it was the tower card, and that was a universal stopping point for tarot readers of the day. We kept getting to the tower card and we couldn't go for it. So we were going along with these, readings. And like, even for my son, I would do a reading and then it would stop in the tower card, which made no sense to me because he was safe. He was in a safe environment and I didn't understand. But 9/11 changes everything. It was a fundamental shift worldwide, and especially in the United States, which is a large part of our identity if you're American. So I think that that's what is interesting to me, was that it was the tower card. And once the towers fell, everybody went, oh, that's what it was.
Yeah.
Like it was a duh. And that after that, you stopped seeing the tower card. Then you started seeing people's future again, because that Nexus event happens, it changes everybody's perspective, and then you can see beyond it because it's over.
Right.
So I think that's one of the other interesting things. So if you have an incident where you're getting the same message for different people over and over, that is something to go find another psychic and ask about, right? Because you want to know, is this a block on your end, or is this a universal block that's being seen by others and experienced by others? Because then you go from personal gnosis to group gnosis. And group gnosis can be very scary and very intense and very telling when you have a bunch of psychics seeing and knowing the same things. That is when everybody should worry, in my opinion.
Yep. If I see a bunch of people start talking to me about 11/11, I'm running. So that everybody knows, Kyler has been plagued by remind me, not in the third person. I sound a little crazy. I should not mention myself in the third person. 11/11 has been everywhere. Every time I glance at a clock, it's like 11/11, and it's morning and night, and it's like every single day. And every time I come to an understanding of it, it goes away and then it comes back, and I'm like, oh no, there's still something in there. So I don't know what this message is, but if somebody else starts seeing 11/11 everywhere,
yeah. I actually was going through my journal, the daily journal that I do, and I was looking at it, and I have dreamed about gorillas. What was it? Gorillas, centipedes, and spiders. I mean, like I'm going through the gamut of zoology right
Mm-hmm.
now in my dreams, having all these different dreams about different animals. It's been really weird because they're animals I've never dreamed about before.
Mm-hmm.
And Kyler is busting to tell me what gorillas mean.
Well, okay. I'm not saying that I know what gorillas mean, but I am saying that over the last couple of days, I've watched The Lion King a couple of times, and there are no gorillas in it. So if you know, you know. Like,
Oh,
oh,
yeah,
may
that makes
have
sense.
that post finally, finally, people who weren't getting it have started to get it.
Yep.
Still apologists, still enabling, but like that was so blatantly awful. There are no gorillas in The Lion King. There is one monkey. His name is Rafiki. He is my favorite character, and half the reason, other than Timon and Pumbaa, why I will rewatch that movie.
Yep.
Yep.
Wow. I hadn't thought
Mm-hmm.
about that. All right.
Mm-hmm.
So gorillas. That dream makes all the sense in the world now. Um, so
And
that's
that's how
solved. I still
divination
am not
works.
sure about the centipedes, the giant centipedes. I still haven't figured that
Nightmare
out.
fuel, giant
Yeah.
centipedes. Dia, it's like you're
House-sized
trying to.
centipedes. It was terrible.
I've read too much science fiction. You've given me nightmare fuel for years on
Yeah,
this
it
one.
was it was not good. Um so you looked up a bunch of different types of divination.
I
Um
did. I
and you
did.
found some new ones that you like. And then the other thing I want to do that we did last time is I do want to do a demonstration of bibliomancy.
Yes.
So I
Just
definitely
so
want to do that. So
I did because I was hoping we would do the bibliomancy. I had so much fun with you last time. I feel
yes.
like we should do an episode where we're doing card pulls and just answering questions. Like we should
Ooh,
ask our people like ask us a bunch of questions and we will do some just divination and it could be serious or it could be us, whatever. But then I randomly reached out, I closed my eyes and I reached out and I grabbed a book off my shelf and guess what book I got this morning?
what'd you get?
The Havamal, the
Oh,
wise words of
wow.
Odin.
That's amazing. The words of Odin.
Yes.
That's amazing. Okay. Well, let's talk about different types of divination first, because that was fun. You
Hmm.
had found some good ones. Um, there are some that
Yes.
lights of, if you're a witch, you've done pyromancy. If you've been around a
Hmm.
fire and a bunch of witches, that's
Yep.
inevitable. But what are
Right.
some of the ones that are unusual?
So, Oomancy. I'm not pronouncing that probably correctly. That is divination through egg yolks.
Interesting.
Yeah. Another one, because we're on a baking kick, is alluromancy, which is the divination through loose flour. Now, that's not flour petals, that's like baking flour. So
Wow.
if there's one in, oh, you know what? There probably is one for like the granular sugar. I haven't come across it yet,
I'm
but you
sure.
could make coffee cake. Like you could turn just making coffee
Ooh.
cake into a divinatory class. I'm liking where my brain is going. Also, I'm a little hungry. Um, let's see. Oenomancy is the divination through wine. And I know I have done this before. I can tell everybody out there the messages you get might directly relate to quote unquote the spirits that you are engaging with. So a white Zinfandel, for instance, may give you a very different tone of foreknowledge than say a Pinot Noir or a good port. So just gonna toss that out. Um, I know it certainly affects my mother differently. And oh, this one is nightmare fuel. This is going to go right along with your centipedes. Ophiomancy. Ask me what that is.
What is ophiomancy?
Pattern recognition through snakes. It's like getting messages through the patterns of snakes writhing together.
Oh, oh,
Um,
oh,
no,
oh!
that's a
It's
no
that
me
scene
gusta.
from the Hunger Games where the girl is
Hmm.
is the snakes, and oh,
Yeah, yeah. Here's another fun one. Right back to baking. Spatulamancy. It's
Okay.
divination through kitchen utensils. So these sound ridiculous. Everybody, anything that allows your brain to switch into a liminal place and then go into pattern recognition can be used for divination.
Yep.
So like the taphromancy, that's the use of ash. There's
What's the one with the music?
oh
Divination through.
it starts with an R. There's rhapsomancy or something like that. I think rhapsody or something. There's a couple of different names for that. Some of these have different names for the exact same thing because they come from like different areas.
Right.
A lot of the Mancies have like the French twist on it because everything sounds better in French. Because you've got folks who use like the clairs, like clair tangency, clair
Right.
gustance, and all
Right.
that. Um, oh, there's okay. So if you're part of PETA, you're not going to like this one. Uh, and I do want to say that this is legitimate and has been used a very, very long time. The use of like entrails
Right.
for yeah,
Yeah.
that tends to be like big city state stuff. So when you talk about like that high woo woo magic,
Yeah.
that's like big picture city state, like you're
Well,
backed
but
by the crown kind of divination, and
I
that's
what's it called?
poimendrous,
Poimendrous.
poimendrous, yes.
But what I've thought about this, and one of the things I would say is this also was necessity, right? You were talking about
Mm-hmm.
how psychic ability and divination is of necessity, and one of the necessary things was to slaughter animals, and
Mm-hmm.
nothing would go to waste. Well, how better to not let things go to waste than to read the entrails of what
Mm-hmm.
you're going to slaughter anyway, so you might as well make
Right.
it useful
Yep.
and prophetic. So that makes sense to me in some ways. I would
Yeah.
never do it, but of
Right. Right.
course,
Well,
I've
I
never
mean,
had the necessity. If I had to
right.
necessarily kill a cow, I might
Mm-hmm.
do it
Yeah.
because why let that energy go to waste?
That is
The
actually very go ahead.
rhapsomancy I wanted to go back to because that
Okay.
was fun. It was you ask a question and then you hit a randomizer, a music randomizer.
Oh.
What's
That's
that one?
shufflemancy. Shufflemancy.
Shufflemancy.
Yes.
And
Totally
and
made up. Shufflemancy.
you
Yes.
let the music be the answer to your question.
Mm-hmm.
Shufflemancy. I thought that was really cool. And there are lots of people who I actually overheard one of my LARP friends say this. They were like, I don't have any psychic ability, but I could tell you what the next song on the radio is going to be every single time. And I just sat there going, that is psychic ability.
Mm. People are so dedicated to not believing in themselves. That is the place, that's the energy that I've been living in for like the last 2 weeks. I am dealing with people who are phenomenal expressions of the human condition, of the human experience. Great people. And given what's happening in the world right now, if you're surrounded by really awesome people, that's what you need. You need that energy, right? Like community and without fail. And I think sadly this is a function of our society and it works directly against people's ability to hear themselves. We talk about listening to that voice inside, which is the heart of divination. People are dedicated to not believing in themselves. And it is so incredibly sad to me. Now, I say that as somebody who spent 30, 35 years telling those voices to shut up. No, you are good enough, you are capable enough, your voice has value and all of that. But that's just the where we're living right now.
Yeah.
Um I am going to toss one more out there real quick just before I totally forget it. Tyromancy. It's not divination through Tyra Banks. It's
It's divination through the wearing patterns of attire.
no, tyromancy is divination through cheese.
I want to do divination now through the wear patterns of attire.
Yeah.
Now I want that to be a thing.
I've had too many Tyra conversations in the last 2 weeks. like tires, like actual physical
Yes,
tires.
physical tires.
I've learned more about tires in the last 2 weeks, so it's really funny that you want to do tire tread patterns. Like I can't escape tires right now. Um, okay, so
Okay.
we did music, we did weird types of divination.
Right.
Um, one other thing that we didn't do last time, which occurred to me this morning,
Hmm.
and I'm springing on you because it just occurred to me that it occurred to me, and I forgot to
Right.
tell you because of, how my brain works. Preparation for divination, like the
Mm.
act of divination. So I have had some really wonderful teachers. I've had very kitchen witchy, no pretense whatsoever, all the way up to I've been very fortunate to spend some time with some very very gifted people, whose names you would recognize. Basically, every one of them makes it special. Like it's special. Like when you need to step out and see divination, especially if you're doing something really big, like you've got a difficult question to answer, the more special you make it. Like I've had folks who will literally, before a big divination, like they'll do like a yearly divination for their family, they'll fast for a couple of days before.
Right.
Yeah, they meditate before they go into it, so they're in the right headspace. For other folks, I have a friend who can only read if there are 2 glasses of white wine in, because
Hmm.
that's what it takes to shut their brain up. Um, but everybody has their own way. The thing that I would say is, whatever it is, ritualize it, make it yours, because that's going to help, especially for people who are just starting out.
Hmm.
When you take those steps, that's why we do ritual for
Hmm.
magic, because it gets everybody on the same wavelength. When you do that ritual enough, that's the ignition sequence for the different parts of you to talk at the same time. And suddenly a lot of voices become a choir. And so we didn't touch on that last time, but preparation for divination, very important. And it's not the same for everybody, but there should be some preparation. Otherwise, you're going to struggle to catch those threads, especially when you're first starting out.
Yeah, one of the things that I use are veils. I
Mhm.
find veils are really great, and you want them to be heavy enough they can't be seen through. That's the whole point. Because you are no longer going to be seeing with your eyes. You're going to be uh,
Mhm.
the divine is going to be seeing through you, and so that
Mhm.
becomes a different kind of thing. So use of veils, especially for those who are willing, or blindfold, anything that will cut off the sense of sight and
Mhm.
allow for that third eye to be seen is a good way to go about doing it. I do that, and I also will, and along with preparation, I want to point out, if you are someone who relies on your psychic ability a lot, you may scoff at preparation because it's just something that you do all the time, every day. I
Mhm.
had a famous witch one time try to close down my crown chakra and couldn't understand why I couldn't. And I was like, oh, it's always open. Like, that's just, I live that way. And they were like, you're weird. And I'm like, I don't, yeah, but I do that. That's how I live. And I've lived that way all my
Mhm.
life.
And
Um,
that's why we're friends.
yep. So my crown chakra is always open. Yay. I protect it, folks, but it's always a little open. It's never going to shut
Yeah.
closed because that's how I live. Like, I live with that information coming in all the time. That doesn't mean preparation isn't important. And the more serious form of divination, which to me is drawing down the goddess or the
Mhm.
god into yourself, that is the most sincere form of divination. If you're going to do that, the more preparation that is required. So fasting, blindfolding, veiling, all of these things to get you out of your head and out of the way of the god and goddess. And this is something that takes
Mhm.
practice, right? This is not something that you just do. So you need to practice these different techniques if you want to accomplish doing them. So practice them and do automatic writing. It's a really great way to practice drawing down the goddess. You draw down the goddess, take a piece of paper that's blank because you want the freedom to draw if that's what happens, and then write or draw whatever the divinity gives you, and then bring the ritual to a close and see what you see. And this is
Mhm.
another good point to point out: the more divinely inspired the inspiration, the more likely you are to not remember what you said.
Yes.
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 So
That's a thing.
that's a thing. So
Yeah.
after you do the automatic writing, if you read it and go, I don't know, I don't remember writing any of this, then that's how you know that you were divinely writing, because you don't
Hmm.
remember. My book, that Birthing Hereditary Witchcraft Family Coven, I actually wrote that mostly through um, divination. Like the goddess would take over, and then a bunch of time would pass, and I would look up, and I will have written 3 chapters, and I've been like, wait, what? I wrote what?
Hmm.
Like, okay, that's good.
Hmm.
Not me, but okay, that's great. So,
Yeah. You know what's funny is I encountered someone, this is a couple of years ago. They didn't realize that drawing down was divination.
oh,
Yeah. Like
absolutely.
well, that in their brain, it was just a thing that, would happen in ritual, and they'd seen some really good drawing downs. They'd been a part of it. And I'm like, don't you ask questions? Well, yeah. But their brain had never clicked that that was divination. Like you're pulling them down to ask them something. You're not just pulling them down so that you can ogle at them and everything. They're that's a deep level divination. And it was like the moment the light switch flipped, I love that moment because everybody's got a different light bulb face. And
Right,
I want to do a book. I want to do like a photography print book of like cataloging the light bulb moment for people so you can see epiphany. I want to call it epiphany, and it's going to be just a print book of the moment, boom, it made sense.
that would be hard to do.
It would be incredibly hard to do. And it's one of 357,000 great idea projects that would be hard to do that I will never get done. Yeah, I should make a book. It'd be a thick, thick book. Like years ago, I had a phenomenal idea. Like we have all of these old craft legends, that they're getting up there in age. Like in the
Yep.
last 10 years, we've lost a lot of people.
Right,
Who's writing down their stories? Like
right,
who's going with a tape recorder and just for afternoons on end, like getting the stories because we're losing that lore and we don't have the oral traditions like we used to. Like when we say that the Druids were oral, it took them over a decade of
right,
remembering. They had to remember these stories verbatim and carry that on. That's why we don't actually have a Celtic creation myth. We don't know a
right,
lot about the original Celts, what their religion was, because the Romans played the Legion's favorite game, which was stabby stab stab, and then the Druids went away, and so did all that knowledge.
right.
And we've got some of them left. Like thanks to you, I got to spend time with Janet Farrar. I can never say their name. How to say it for me?
Farrar.
Farrar, there we go, and Gavin Bone. That is, I learned so much. The
Right,
people that I read the books of that shaped my journey in Wicca, witchcraft, the craft, the twisty path that I've been on, they became real because Janet and Gavin knew them. They've met them.
right.
They've had long hours drinking wine around a campfire at festivals together. They came to life. That was my idea. And I actually got stuff written down on it. And I don't know where that is. And it was a great idea and it will never see the light of day.
Yep.
Yep.
Bibliomancy. We wanted to do
Ooh,
some bibliomancy live.
yes.
So, what is a question you want to ask, or do you want me to ask?
Ooh. Well, why don't we do this? Why don't I ask you a question, then you ask me a question?
Okay.
Okay. Um, does this time in our nation's history bring us back to our core ideals? Or is it a slide into chaos before a rebuilding, a full rebuilding? That's a
Okay.
big one. Mm.
So, say that again. Does this time in history?
Does this time in history, basically this tower card in history, this period that we're in, bring us back to our truer core ideals? Or is this kind of the end of this experiment in the way that it is, and now we become something else?
Okay. The spear of blue, like the first rays of the sun, penetrates the heart of all problems. The allegory or prophecy given by the spear of light is received by all living beings through the all-embracing power of the sun, which gives vigor, health, and joy to all. The spirit of the suit of skill is received most clearly through the element of fire, and in the season of spring, when the when creative fire returns to earth. Yes, to both. Yes, it brings us back
Divination.
to the vigor, health, and joy to all. And
Okay.
yes, it puts us through fire.
Okay.
Fire changes, right?
Okay.
So the spirit of the suit of skill is received most clearly through the element of fire. And in the season of
Okay.
spring, when the creative fire returns to earth.
Okay.
So we won't be exactly as we are,
Mm-hmm.
and we will return to our core values. I take that as a yes to both questions.
Okay. And God being very much a God of skills.
Yeah,
Like,
Lou. Right.
yeah.
We
Well,
have to learn skills to get through this.
right. Well, I hope that this is a pushback against like the anti-intellectualism that's happening,
Right.
because that's a thing. Like you're always going to have those who know how to do things and those who know stuff, and then those who need the people who know stuff, because just like the people who know stuff need the people who do the things.
Right.
Like that's how societies work. Um, okay.
All right.
Your
So the
question.
book I was using, just for the record, was the
Ooh.
Celtic Wisdom Tarot book. It's the book for the actual cards. So I flipping through and I was pointing to the explanation of one of the cards of the deck. That's what I was using. And let's see what my question is.
I did a big universally big one. You got to do a big one too, or I'm gonna look like an idiot.
I know that's why I was thinking. Will the two-party system survive in the United States?
Ooh. Okay. Okay. Okay.
Will the two-party system survive in the United States?
One fire takes its power from another till it is consumed. One spark only springs from another spark. A man becomes wise and witty by talking with others, but fools remain foolish by remaining isolated.
What do you think?
I think it's a season of fire. Um,
Clearly, that's what we've
yeah.
gotten.
So I don't know that this directly answers the question, but it is an indictment of where we are.
Right.
Because like what this is talking about, like we're talking about like media echo chambers. Like that is how we have
Yeah.
become divided. No, I guess it does, because like you're talking about polarized divisions in the
Right.
two parties.
Party
Our
system.
government, right, our government has worked for as long as it has, as well as it has. Like it's not perfect by any means.
Right.
I'm not saying that,
No.
because there were always centrists and polar opposites. The problem is that they have now just polarized all to either side. And those middle groups don't have the voting power that they used to,
Right.
because of extremification of radicalization of the voting electorate and the pressure that's placed on all of that. A man becomes wise and witty by talking with others, but fools remain foolish by remaining isolated. I mean, I that is kind of the core of where we are today, as from what I'm seeing.
Right.
So it doesn't directly mention the Supreme Court overturning Citizens United, hashtag overturn Citizens United.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah.
What
Mm.
is Citizens United? Why don't I understand what you just said?
Oh my goodness. Okay, well, it's time for ranting and storytelling time, kiddos. So Citizens United is the source of all bad things. One of the issues that we face in our government today is a Supreme Court ruling called Citizens United, and it basically says that companies are individuals, and
Oh,
the money that they can bring to bear is the freedom of speech. So money is speech. And with Citizens United, that's when we saw the government change
Right.
I mean, it's always had some corruption, but in the old days, if you were found to be taking bribe money, that
Right.
was the end of your political career. Now it's Tuesday.
Right.
Like it's Citizens United paved the way for that, and it paved the way for the current Supreme Court that we have. You've got Thomas and Alito, and they've been bankrolled by billionaires. We know this, but because of this, and I'm not saying that at the time the court did it to be directly self-serving. Sometimes when you have a court that's got eggheads, they sit around, and I say this, I can say this, they're my people. My head literally looks like an egg, so it's our word. Basically, you can think about something in theory and it seems all well and right and good, but the way that theory manifests in the real world, the road to Helheim is paved with good intentions. That was Citizens United, and that gives us everything
Right.
we've got now. It pulled the teeth out of the Hatch Act, which means your government people can take bribes and use their power to endorse and all that. Nobody says anything.
Right. I
So
knew, okay, I just didn't understand that that's the name of it was Citizens United.
yeah,
I knew what you were talking about. After you started talking, I was like, oh, I know what this is. I
yeah,
just didn't know that it was Citizens United that did it. Well,
yeah.
we have come to a lot of endings here on this
Oh,
podcast time.
oh,
It's
why'd you
been
say
over
it
an
that
hour.
way? Well, yeah, but it sounds like you're saying this is our last hurrah, folks. It's a
No.
lot of endings. Oh God, my heart. I'm like, bad news. Did I know about
No.
this?
No. I wanted to shout out, to our fan of the week, Oakley
Mm-hmm.
Cunningham. I
Hey,
see
Oakley.
you. I see you, and I see you mentioning starting threads and posting, reposting, and all those things. Oakley, we appreciate you. And I'm also going
Absolutely.
to have my LARPer fan of the week because all of my LARP friends are listening and watching. And I just want to shout out to you guys. Thank you so much. I never imagined when I started this that my LARP family would come out and support me this way. And I
Mm.
want to say a special shout out to Sassafras. You know who you are, and you know why I call you out. And then I want to remind y'all, it's not just about sharing our TikToks and liking our
Mm-hmm.
little vignettes. It's about downloading the podcast, going to the podcast, listening to the podcast,
Mm-hmm.
or going to YouTube now. 2 weeks after the podcast is released, the YouTube video is released. So you can go to YouTube and watch there. Any place where you're watching and experiencing with Urban Unwitches is actually documented is really important to us.
Mm-hmm.
And we need to see that support happening. So just a mention to you to don't just enjoy our little vignettes, but do go and download the podcast or watch on YouTube, someplace where we can note that you've seen the whole episode. That's really important to us. So that's my fan of the week. And now we go on to Resiliency Corner. What's your Resiliency Corner this week?
Last time we had a resiliency corner, and it was our Rage Kitten divination episode. And I made a joke, but the more I thought about it, the more I really liked it. So if you take a Sharpie and you write love on your knuckles and you find a Nazi, rearrange their chakras. That's your resiliency corner. Just rearrange them. Just open that third eye, just right on there. But if they're dressed like ice, that means they also have tasers and pepper spray. So maybe don't do that.
Yeah,
Non-violence, all
well,
that.
and
But
guns. They
Nazis,
also have
yeah,
guns. So, yeah.
they also have guns, and they're dumb enough to use them. I think my resiliency corner is a week of daily divinations. Um, I have found that when I have a direction, it is it's harder for me to lose my way, to lose the thread. I'm a very purpose oriented person. If you have an issue, if you are in a bad place, do some divination or ask someone who is also a diviner to do it for you because sometimes we're too close to our own problems. Often we're too close to our own problems, that whole ego id thing. Um, but you can try every morning take your favorite tool of divination and do a daily pull. Do a spread. Do, even if it's a 1 or a 3 card pull, if you do the tarot. If you're a baker, alluromancy, just toss the flour right onto your baking board there. Um, that would be my resiliency corner, because resiliency happens in the in between moments, the little moments. We fight back most effectively when we are all doing little things together. That's how you make the tidal wave that can't be turned aside.
And my resiliency corner is twofold. First of all, if you don't know anything about whistles, you should look into that. Whistles and ice, you should look into those things, and use your ability to maybe purchase some whistles and send them to communities at risk, or train your
Mm-hmm.
neighbors in the use of these whistles, because you might need that soon.
Mm-hmm.
So I would, that's one of the things I have to say is maybe buy a box of whistles and send them somewhere where they belong and are needed the most. And then my other resiliency corner, and I did this last time and I'm gonna do it again, is I do a daily journal and I'm studying geomancy. Geomancy is a 16-figure divinatory system that is as old and older than Agrippa, older than some of these very wise men who studied geomancy. It comes out of the Fertile Crescent Valley, and it's also seen in Ifa, an African religion. And so I pull one of those a day and I do the reading and I write down what it means. And this helps discipline me. And if you want to grow your psychic, your witchcraft, discipline is where it's at. And doing a daily journal helps to focus you and give you that discipline every day. So that's my resiliency corner. I'm really glad you guys joined us again. And next time, we're going to talk a little more in depth about a couple of specific divinatory practices that you may or may not have ever heard of. And we're going to give a little more information about those. So I hope you join us next time. And so mote it be. Have a magical
Hey,
day.
hail and farewell.